This letter will be her last will and testament to her dear mother. She believes her words were true, and she should have listened to her mother when she said that this love is not eternal and not unique. The girl saw a man enter the room and ask him to wait a minute. However, the man insists they don't have time, and the main character asks if he can deliver the letter. The lady asks where the prince is, and the gentleman replies that he is waiting outside, and then takes her hand and they walk together. At this time, people on the street are screaming and saying that they should offer the saint. One day, an unknown creature, the devil, appeared, and within 1 day of its appearance, half of the western part of Otan turned to ashes. Wild screams of people echoed throughout the area from the terrifying power emanating from the entire creature, and at the moment when everyone wanted this creature to leave the sacred land for the imperial palace, someone began to spread a rumor that if they sacrificed the holy girl to the devil, everything would be resolved. The only saint of Otana, the immortal beloved chosen by the prince, is a noble and benevolent woman who resembles an angel, La Villainess Bailey. The deceiving saint claimed that there were no people like her in this country. Saint La Villainess, or simply Lara, she was an illusion created by this country's prince, who coveted the throne. The main character understood that she was just a secondary character in the script created by the prince and the temple, and the main actor in this play, Siddharth Hafran Otan, the man she loved very much. The girl says that he is a bastard, and asks if he is happy now, and also wonders what will happen to him when she dies. The main character asks whether he will become a poor prince saddened by the loss of his beloved, or a noble hero who overcame sorrows and defeated the devil. The prince extends his hand to her and says that she is his beautiful love, and the girl screams and tells him to stop. Suddenly, everyone was surprised as the prince knelt before the lady and begged his beloved to die. He also reminded her of their agreement and suggested she close herself off and die quietly. Lara claims she's been living a prosperous life all this time, a beloved princess and the only saint. The prince asks if that's not enough, or if more declarations of love and compliments are needed. He insists he loves her because she's so perfect and beautiful. Sidar tells her to be more submissive, and then claims she knows he can drag her to the altar like a dog because he believes this is her reassignment, and asks if that's true, and then he thinks he can't watch this anymore. The princess looked at His Majesty and claimed that he should not have betrayed her, and then took the bottle of poison and drank it. When the Sidar saw this, he wanted to take it, but it turned out he was too late. He cried out and asked for a priest. At this time, the main character thought that she was in pain and felt as if her whole body was burning and her soul was being torn apart, but even so, she thought that everything was fine because she knew that this was not the end. The next day, the girl realized that she had returned to the life of La Villainess Bailey and not a saint. On the day when in her past life they decided to sacrifice her, on the day when all her resentment towards the prince spilled out, the goddess turns to Lara and tells her that she will give her a second chance to turn everything back and fix it. At that moment, the main character thought this was the end, but at that moment, she heard a gentle voice. She wondered if it was a message or a temptation from a filthy devil, because she knew it meant nothing. Lara is ready to give up her soul and is ready to find herself in an eternal trap of torment, and she is ready for anything because there is an opportunity to turn back time. The girl hated how much she resembled her mother in her cold nature, and believed that, if she had taken after her father, she could have won the love of a prince. She believed that her busy and indifferent mother was a bad parent, while her father was a good one because he often gave her beautiful clothes and accessories. The main character at that time did not know that her father, despite all his good-natured appearance, was a greedy and vile man. The young lady understood that she should be soapy and not look directly into the eyes, and keep her gaze down when smiling and do it quietly and innocently. Her father said that she should wear clothes and not show her skin because the prince liked calm and modest women. To impress the prince, the girl tried to be the most gentle woman in the world. In exchange for losing herself after being chosen by the prince, she began to do everything he asked. The princess did not know that the prince and the temple were in collusion with the evil magicians, and by taking their side, she contributed to the expulsion of the innocent princess and unleashed a war between the kingdom and the lawless regions. A villain with the face of a saint, she brought misfortune to all the people who were near her. The maid asks her mistress how much longer she'll be staying, and also inquires if she's caught a cold from the water. Connie insists that even though it's summer, she asked her not to stay in the bath for so long. The maid looked at her mistress and surprised, asked what was wrong, and if she was feeling unwell. Then she assumed she was cold and asked if she should bring her robe. The main character assures that everything is fine, and the maid asks what is going on. At this time, Laura thought that this was exactly the kind of child she was, and even if her facial expression became a little gloomy, she noticed it like a ghost and always followed her words. Among the Bailey family's maids, Connie was the only one who truly liked her. When she became the prince's puppet, this maid was very dissatisfied and opposed him. She was the only maid who disliked the Sidar prince. Khan asks the lady not to enter the royal castle because he believes that if the prince truly loved the lady, he would not force her to meet his taste criteria from start to finish. The maid says that she knows that she is crossing the line, but for her it is strange because she is dying from worrying about her. The lady claims that she crossed the line because she believes that the prince cannot do this. The child who had the courage to tell the truth was mercilessly cast out. At this time, the main character realized that she had made a mistake and then hugged her maid and thought that she missed her very much, and then thought that it would be right to say thank you to her. Connie asks in surprise why the lady is acting so strangely today, and also asks if she has read the novel about the playboy. There were too many people who were left next to her and became unhappy, and so the main character turned back time to correct her mistakes now. Lara thought that even if she had to become a true villain, she would do everything to live her life differently. However, she wondered how it all happened. The main character understood that she was now at a moment in which she had not yet met him. The girl asks the maid what date it is and how her coming-of-age ceremony went. Connie replies that it was a complete mess, as the Marquise was busy tending to the faction and Madame was absent, and there were no other ladies at the party. Only the master's invited guests. Hearing this, the lady thought it seemed like not much time had passed since that incident. Last summer, on her birthday, after her coming-of-age ceremony, she sent a portrait to the prince, and then she wondered if she had already sent it and whether she had met him. Lara asks the maid what's going on with her mother. The maid replies that she heard her mother was leaving soon, since they started preparing her luggage after breakfast. Hearing this, the mistress thought about what it meant, that this would happen today, and then announced that she would go to her right now. Connie invited the mistress to go with her. Instead of calling her the Marchioness of Bailey, they call her Isadora of Heaven because she is very famous by this nickname and is the best voice in the Ottoman. The lady understood that her mother was always busy, and when the scale of the business surpassed the Otanian kingdom and reached the empire, rumors began to circulate that Isadora, a former commoner, had bought her husband for gold. But there was good reason for the rumors. A husband who despised his wife and a wife who despised her husband were known as one of society's worst couples, and this same couple decided to fuel the rumors even further, beginning with her coming-of-age ceremony when they finally separated. Lara turns to the woman and says that as soon as she leaves this house, she will stop calling her mother. The mother turns to her daughter, and she, screaming, objects, and tells her not to call her by her name anymore, since they are now strangers. After this farewell, she felt that her mother had abandoned her, and the only thing that kept her sane until her death were the numerous letters sent to her mother. These were short letters with a few questions, but in every word one could read sincere concern for her, and she does not understand why she did not notice this then, because her first response letter was her will. The main character thought that she would have liked to have known then that this would happen, because then she would have advised them to go back to the time when her parents were not yet married and would have wanted to tell her not to give birth to her and not to marry such a man. Lara reflects that now she can only tell her to go away and be happy, and she would like to say this because she assumes that perhaps her mother would feel a little better. If Lara had not been born, then Mother would have been able to live a freer and better life than anyone else. The main character thinks that her mother is the coolest and most capable woman in the world, and she ran away being so confident, but now she became scared, and she wondered what if she started to hate her. Lara understood that usually she was the one who didn't care about her, and was afraid that now her mother would react the same way, and if she could, she would at least apologize for all her past mistakes. The young lady realizes that she has no time left at all, since her mother is already getting ready to leave. Connie, surprised, asks the lady why she is running like that and offers to go with her. The girl turns to her mother and asks her to wait, then grabs her hand. At that moment, I thought she'd made a mistake and didn't want her to leave her because she'd come to her senses now and would definitely listen to everything. The daughter didn't want her to leave and simply wanted her to stay by her side. The lady asks her daughter what happened, And at this time, she does not understand whether she will be able to hold this woman back. The young lady wonders if her mother was ever happy in this house, and then tells the woman to divorce her father. And at that time, I thought about how this was the first thing she fixed. As a result, an awkward atmosphere hung in the air, and the girl thought that maybe it was because she had returned 10 years ago, because all this time they had lived far from each other like strangers, and she began to wonder if it could be that her mother was also nervous, just like her. The daughter asks why she doesn't get a divorce. The mother replies that she wanted to take responsibility for her choice, since her relationship with this man ended long ago, and she promised herself she wouldn't leave this house at least until she became an adult. The lady reports that she understands why her daughter was not allowed to come to her coming-of-age ceremony, since it is natural that she felt abandoned when she was told that she was leaving. The woman reminds her that she told her not to appear in front of her. Hearing this, the protagonist doesn't understand what the hell she did in the past, and then asks for forgiveness. Lara says that she has a question, and then says that if God appeared and said that she could send her to the past, she would wonder if her mother would return. The Duchess says she wouldn't do that, and the young lady asks in surprise why. 1. The Duchess says it doesn't matter, and let her do what she wants. The girl, sitting in the Marquis of Bailey's estate, reflects on the fact that it is actually even better that her mother left because the Bailey mansion will now be very noisy, and she understands that she does not need to drag her mother there. The young lady recalls a previous life where she destroyed her own destiny. She recalls her mother asking her to stop before it was too late because no matter what happened, she would protect her. However, Lara then said that it was not necessary because she had read that she could handle it herself and laughed at the one who gave her sincere advice. The princess realizes she died before her parents and believes she must have been the worst daughter on earth. She simply thought she was a terrifying and strict person, but when she remembers those days, she realizes she was a loving mother, and that's why it was so hard for her mother to turn away from the one to whom she opened her heart. The Duchess is a strong person who was more strict with herself than with others, and the young lady understands that she is not retraining at all, because her mother was always on her side, and no matter what mistake she made, even when everything was irreparably ruined. Mom was the only one who offered her a helping hand, and Lara understands that she is lucky that now she can say that she loves her. The maid asks the mistress what she is doing, and then informs her that the artist is already here, and she needs to get ready quickly. The main character looked at the dress, and thought that today was the day when she needed to draw a portrait and send it to the prince. Connie informs her that her hair will be neatly tied and covered with a veil, then reminds her that she did say she wanted to look beautiful. The maid says she will paint her skin white and draw the corners of her eyes a different color. The maid says something about how she wanted her lips not to be too red, so she uses a light pink color. The lady screams and says that she doesn't want to, and then suggests taking a red dress, and the color should be so saturated that it resembles a red liquid. When the artist saw the main character, he looked at her in surprise. The lady asked him to draw her as she was, and not to add or distort her, but simply draw her as she saw it. The man smiled and said that he understood her, and then got to work. The maid brought the mistress some tea and asked her to drink it. Meanwhile, the main character was thinking about how noble women of Otan don't wear red dresses, as it's believed that red clothing is preferred by those of lower rank. Lara thought that Prince Sidar was a man with a specific sense of taste, and she believed that he would never be interested in a portrait of a lady in such an outfit, and could only think that the Marquis Bailey was unlucky with his daughter. The girl reflected on being 19 now, believing this was her perfect time, as she had returned not too late, but not too early either, and she had returned before the prince even found out about her. The young lady thought that if she avoided him for some time, he would not be visible on the horizon in the near future, and she realized that she needed to move confidently because there were many things that needed to be resolved before she met him. The maid turns to her mistress and says that she is very nervous because she thought that her mistress was so quiet and conservative and would never have thought that she would go to a place like the arena. Lara claims she never thought she'd come to such a place either. Connie says she thinks the sun rose in the west today, and she'll be even more surprised than she is now. However, her mistress suggests she go, and the maid, surprised, asks what she'll do when the Marquise finds out. The main character tells her not to worry about it because she doesn't think something like that will make him scold her. Then she says that if she doesn't want to go with her, she can stay here alone. The maid thought that it would be better for them to go together, and when they entered the arena, the lady was surprised because she realized that it was quite spacious there than she thought. Connie tells the lady to look at the history of this month's battles. The lady tells the maid that she should at least go out into the light sometimes, since she always sits at home. The maid asks if she really wants to buy fish, and also inquires about the suddenness of the situation. The lady replies that she needs to find someone. Damian rode Drake. He was a slave who came to Aten from the Estragon Empire, and even the Imperial Knights could not defeat him, and therefore he received the nickname of the King of Criminals, because in the distant future, the wars of the lawless region chose him as their king. A man who received the title of Lord, and also a man who suffered enormous misfortunes because of her. After all, when he lived as a slave in Aten's arena, he was accused of a ridiculous crime. Then Lara confidently said that he was clearly a spy, sent by the Empire, who pretended to be a slave and hid his true identity, and he stole information from the nobility of Otane. The main character accused him without even knowing that it was all a lie, because the prince asked her to do it, and he was accused of sins that he did not commit, and he became a slave to the prince of the Sidar. And in addition, he also went to war, but his misfortunes did not end there. A man who does not serve God, what can he do against the devil? Because he uses powers that are not God's. Because of her words, Damian spent his entire life being condemned and persecuted by the temples and the empire for her lies. But even so, he didn't blame her. The guy says he has a question, and then asks if she will stop hating him when he returns victorious from this battle. The girl remembers that this was his first question, and the second time it was the same question, repeating it several more times. He asked if she was going to make a false promise again this time. Daniel wondered why she hated him so much, and after asking this, he left the father that same night. Lara understands that, judging by what she heard, his comrades on the field helped him avoid battle. However, she wonders why he didn't blame her, since she was his enemy, and he had ample opportunity to do so. The young lady reflects on how she never hated him, and believes that if she had told him that it was just an order from the Sidar prince. The main character thought that there was no time to tell the truth, or dispel doubts, because he was the one who gave up after so many false answers. Milady looked at the boy and thought she had found him. The maid turned to her mistress and invited her to step aside and go inside. Lara asks if she can find out if this guy's up for auction today. Connie, surprised, asks if she's talking about this worthless slave. Hearing this, the main character thought he was capable of killing everyone present right then and there. The maid said there were other slaves as beautiful as this one, but the girl looked at her in such a way that she agreed. The young lady looked at the guy who was sitting in the cage and thought that she never hated him, and thought that perhaps she could not atone for all her past sins, but unfortunately, she could not even tell him the whole truth. The Duchess thought that in this life at least, she would not leave him alone, because she was sure that she would not repeat the same mistake. The maid reports that this time it arrived this morning, and they don't yet know when they will put it up for auction, and if after they wash it, it looks normal, then they will send it to the tournament. Connie says that they say that if no one likes him, he will be sent to the mine, and that is why she feels sorry for him. Hearing this, Lara thought that she felt sorry for the people who were transporting this man, because they understood that he needed to do something here, and that's why he allowed them to grab him. Otherwise, with such skills, he would never have fallen into their hands. Connie, surprised, says it's even more luxurious inside. A lady in a pink dress turns to Lara and asks where this country bumpkin is from, and her friend says she looks tasteless and doesn't understand that with her hair, it's like straw. Hearing this, the maid invites the mistress to come next time, but the mistress objects, saying it's all fine, as she finds these ladies quite nice. She then asks what she thinks they'll do to her, as she believes all they can do is whisper from afar. The main character thinks that they are just like grumpy aunties, and the main thing is that she hasn't done anything yet, and then says that it doesn't matter, because besides, she's not a child, and everything is fine. Connie says she was a child before her coming-of-age ceremony, and then wonders who will say she's little now. However, even if she's an adult, anyone can be hurt by unkind words. The host informs the ladies that the match is about to begin. The lady suggests they hurry up because she can't wait, and has come so far that she can't turn back like this. The main character thought that, by a lucky chance, she met Damian right after she returned to the past, and therefore knows that she will become his supporter. The man informs them that he will give them some information before today's game, as they are currently caring for the newly arrived slaves. Therefore, he suggests not leaving immediately after the game ends, but informing them of his choice. Lara thought that these ladies are in disarray because they want to become the most popular housewife, and this must be their desire. The man announces that the first match is now underway, and that their arena's best customers are competing. The great battle between the warriors of Lady Suivi and Lady Duan. After all, the honor of both the hosts is at stake. He then asks who will become the strongest warrior of the month. The presenter says that a kiss goes to the winner, and a sharp whip goes to the loser. The maid asks her mistress who will win, and she replies that the warrior is Lady Duan. Hearing this, the maid, surprised, asks how she knows this. The lady replies that he is wearing more luxurious clothes and has a more expensive sword. In a few minutes, there was already a winner, and he approached his mistress and kissed her hand. Seeing this, Connie says she doesn't even know what to do with herself, and then asks Milady if she saw it. Lara, meanwhile, thought that anyone who saw her would think she was the one who was kissed, and she wondered when he would come out. The man turns to the ladies and asks if everyone knows how auctions are conducted. He explains that the contract is renewed every 6 months, and the slave will be sold to the lady who bids the highest price, and then suggests they begin. The ladies began bargaining, and almost all the slaves were sold, leaving only a rare species in the otan. The host says he has black hair, and then asks the ladies if they've ever seen that color. The aristocrats say that he is too skinny and stooped, and needs to be washed, because he is sloppy and even his clothes are inappropriate, and therefore they think that it is not worth spending money on him. Lara turns to the maid and tells her to buy this guy. Hearing this, the maid, surprised, asks why. The lady explains that she wants to befriend him. Connie asks if the mistress is ill, then touches her body and says she has no fever. She then asserts that no matter how curious a person is, it's impossible to be friends with a slave, and suggests it would be better to go to the night ball. The young lady asks if she knows what this place is. The maid replies that it's a place where people find a one-night stand to ease their loneliness. The lady says that this is enough, and then gives her money and says that she can spend as much as she needs, and therefore should buy it. Connie says she's giving 2 gold pieces, and it turns out no one else has given hers. The man says the slave has been sold. The mistress praises her, saying she did a good job. Lara reflects on the fact that she bought the man who will become the king of crime for only 2 gold pieces. At this time, Damian, being in his room, thought that despite the fact that he deliberately did it to look unsightly, he was still bought, and especially for only 2 gold coins. The guy thought that this was not enough to buy even a shabby longsword, and he never thought that he would be treated like this. The slave saw the maid of the lady who bought him, and she said that since he had become a great warrior of her lady, then let him take this, and at that time, the men brought a box in which there was a weapon. The guy asks in surprise what it is, and the maid says that they will see each other soon, and then leaves. Damian opened the box, smiled, and thought that he wanted to see this woman right now. The next day, the maids turn to the mistress and say that she really looks like an angel, and think that the prince must be the happiest man in the world because he is loved by such a wonderful girl like her. The maid says that even when their lady becomes queen, she asks them not to forget them. The mistress says that of course she will take them all to the royal palace, and then says that if they want the jewelry, they can take it. After this, the young lady went to her father, but the master objected, explaining that their maids could not become maids in the royal palace. The daughter, surprised, asked if there was no other way out, but the master refused. At this time, the main character remembered that she had already said that she would take them with her, and if she said honestly that she couldn't, then they might not understand her, and thought that this was stupidity, because they were just words. The lady overheard the maids talking, saying that they felt sorry for the prince because their mistress didn't even know peace, and wondered if she could even be such a saint. The maid says that if such a princess could become a saint, then she could certainly be much better. Lara looked at the maids and thought that this was how it had been. The maids tell their mistress that they're finished cleaning. The lady says that since they're done, they should leave. Hearing this, the maids are surprised, and the mistress asks if they heard what she said. The servant turns to her friend and says she doesn't understand what the mistress ate today because she's so angry. The maid explains that not long ago she gave them pocket money and treated them to snacks. Lara asks why they are standing, and then tells them to leave, and only offers Connie to stay. The maids don't understand that this has suddenly never happened to her before, and they are surprised. Connie asks the lady if she is disappointed with the maids, and she says no, and the maid says that is a lie. The main character understands that, in any case, all this is in the past, and all people are selfish. while the maids were simply true to their nature. The maid's problem isn't all that important, but the fact is that sooner or later, the Sidar prince will come to grips with it. Connie turns to the lady and says that she will help her comb her hair. The girl understands that even if he doesn't like her portrait, he will need the Marquis Bailey, and she understands that it is better not to meet him at all. Lara turns to the maid and asks if her father would allow her to leave and live separately. She says no, as she thinks he'd rather lock her away so he can keep her close. Since Madame left the mansion, the Marquise's mood has become terrible. The young lady understands that in social circles, eldest daughters are treated as political commodities and understands that it is natural that he will not let her go. The maid asks when she will visit this slave, since the day has passed. The mistress wonders if anyone visits the arena every day and if she will go there when she gets bored. The main character thought about how her goal was to help Damian, not to become a brazen lady hostess. She wondered what she could do to escape the clutches of the prince and her father. The Marquis Bailey was a man who placed great value on the glory of power and the opinions of others. Despite the fact that all the family's wealth was earned by her mother, he did not acknowledge her contribution, and even considered her own business frivolous. Her father insisted to his wife that nobles shouldn't be merchants, and he was always spouting such nonsense. But the young lady realized that the prince was very much like him, and he needed a well-built woman who could strengthen his name. Lara reflects on what these two people have in common. They didn't like the wasteful women who are always on other people's lips, and she doesn't understand what she should do to become a woman who is the opposite of their demands. Connie asks again when she'll visit this slave, as the day has passed. Hearing this, the main character realizes she's not a villain disguised as a saint, and she thinks she just needs to show them what a real villain looks like. In Lara's room, a few minutes ago, the maid informs the mistress that there is a tournament today and he will be there. The young lady says that she didn't know Damian would be entering the competition so soon and that she needs to meet with the designer after that. The maid suggests that the lady first meet with the designer because the clothes she is wearing now are casual, and if she will wear something similar. Lara interrupts her and claims that it's okay because it will wait a little while and she will make her beg her to go back to normal clothes. At this time, my lady thought that at the moment, she had accumulated 2,000 gold pocket money, which she wanted to generously invest. Connie looked at the lady and thought that she was very strange. When they arrived at the arena, the maid suggested that the mistress see that all the ladies had come today too. She asked if she was ashamed of her. Connie insists she's not ashamed, and then asks if she's comfortable. She replies that she feels fine, and then she thinks that even without listening to them, she can tell what they're talking about. After all, they're gossiping, and she's sloppy and unpretentious. The host announces that this is the first competition of the day, and the great warrior Lady Dwan and the great warrior Lady Bailey will fight for the honor of their mistresses today. Hearing this, the lady was surprised, and Connie said that this was the same one who won last time. At this time, the main character thought that he was in big trouble, because for this person, all this is just a game, and she thinks that this guy probably doesn't even know how to fight. Lara reflects on the fact that Damian is not playing because he is the kind of person who only knows how to win, and the great warrior Lady Dwan will die. The slave turns to Lady Dwan and gives her a flower, and then says that she is his beautiful mistress, like the morning dew, and therefore he longs to bring her victory in this duel. The host suggests starting. The red-haired lady, surprised, says she's never seen a fight like this before, and the main character reflects on how good it would be if there were no injuries, and everything would have ended with a simple fainting spell, since her slave did not use the sword. A few minutes later, the presenter announces the arrival of a great warrior who exudes a terrifying aura and his mistress, Lady Bailey, and then announces that these are particularly long-awaited moments in the arena, and the great warrior bestows victory upon his mistress. Daniel throws down his sword and then approaches Lara, telling her he dedicates his victory to her, and kissing her hand. He asks her name. Milady apologizes and then announces that she's going to kiss him now. After the kiss, she thinks it's wonderful, even though she hadn't intended to do it in the first place. The main character realized that for kissing a slave in such a public place, she would now be viewed in social circles as a wasteful troublemaker, and it was only a matter of time before this news reached her father. The guy looked at her in surprise and then announced his name was Damian. He picked her up and hugged her. Meanwhile, Lara was surprised, confused as to what to do. She'd thought she'd just cause a little trouble, and now she'd become a wild woman. The lady went into Damian's room and thought that now she probably became known as a very vulgar woman, but she understands that she did not want to use this guy in this way, and she wonders what he was thinking. The Marquise asks why he kissed her. The young man replies that it was because he wanted to, and wonders if he needs a reason. She asks, surprised, what he wants from her, and reflects on her confusion as to why he acts so recklessly, as if he desperately desires her. Damian says he doesn't know what he wants, because he's never made this kind of decision before, and that's what it's like to be a slave. Hearing this, the main character thought that she was like that too, and in the past, she didn't even know what she really wanted, because she did what she was ordered to do, and the man who was born a slave and lived on the battlefield. And although she was born into a noble family, she did not have freedom and therefore understands that they were terribly similar. Lara turns to the boy and asks if he wants to live. He, surprised, asks if they're not alive now, and then says that if he dies, he won't be able to do anything. The girl asks where he wants to go, and if there is anyone he would like to meet, and also whether he wants to start a family or take revenge. However, the guy insists that she was completely off topic, and that he's not interested in any of it. She asks why he came to the Aten then. The young man replies that someone told him he could make a lot of money as a slave in the arena. Hearing this, the lady thought everything had been said fairly, except for the last part, however. She understands that this won't change the meaning, because the main thing is for him to be happy. The Marquise says she will pay the ransom, and he will be free. He asks the lady if she would consider becoming his mistress for the next 6 months, and also wonders if he isn't a slave worth being proud of. Hearing this, the main character doesn't understand what he's up to and what kind of proposal this is, and she realizes that if she thinks about it, he probably means the title of mistress, and thinks that this will be a good reason for a meeting. The girl thought that when he gets closer, he will understand that her enemy is a prince, and understands that this will take a little time, but until that moment, no matter what he wants, she must give him everything. Lara says that if he wants to go out, he should let her know at any time, even when he needs something. The maid reports that someone came from the mansion, and the Marquise was very angry and ordered to repaint the portrait and return back immediately. Hearing this, the lady thought about what it meant that he didn't know that she was in the arena, and then she turned to the guy and told him to be careful, because her father could order his people to deal with him, since rumors would definitely spread because of today. Damian asks what's wrong with him finding out, and also wonders if it's a bad thing. She explains that rumors tend to grow the more they're exaggerated, and others likely assumed they had a very deep relationship, and the same goes for her father. The guy says it's a deep relationship, and she suggests he be careful. He asks if her father has a swordmaster, a mage, or a knight devoted to his family. She replies that they don't have such people, and Damian wonders how he'll be able to finish him off then. Then he insists he won't die, touches her hair, and calls her his mistress. The lady says that it is time for her to go, and also tells him not to call her that, because her name is Lara, and if he wants, he can call her Lady Bailey. The guy agreed with her, and then showed her a bag of money. Seeing this, the girl couldn't understand how he managed to do it. She thought he was a slave who took care of his own needs, and now she didn't even know what to look for first. The lady tells him to buy clothes first, and he asks when she'll come again, and if it will be soon. The lady replies that she'll see how it goes. When the young man was left alone, he thought that, first of all, he needed to calm down, because without a hometown, without parents, without a name, he lived and learned to fight on the battlefields of the Tarragon Empire. Damian learned spearmanship from a knight, fencing from mercenaries, and was also able to study the tactical planning of a respected general. There were people who recognized his talent in the process, but he lived as a wandering slave for 24 years without joining anything. Even when he drinks, he doesn't get drunk. Even when he sees a beautiful woman, he won't pay attention to her, and that's the same as not being interested in money, power, or fame. The guy thought that there was nothing that he wanted to do or achieve, but he believed that this woman, Lara, was different, and he wanted to know her name, the one who came to the arena without being interested in her. Damian wondered why she was looking at him so warily, because this was definitely their first meeting, and he wondered why she seemed so familiar to him and why she was looking at him as if she knew him well. The guy thinks that he is going crazy with curiosity and wants to meet again as soon as possible, and he understands that this is the first time he feels this way and therefore wants her to return as soon as possible. When Lara went out for a walk, the lady offered to look at this shameless face because if she were in her place, she would want to disappear into the ground, because she doesn't understand how one can be so careless as to kiss a fish in front of everyone. The woman says that she is the daughter of the Marquis Bailey, and her friend said that she was known for her excellent manners, and therefore does not understand how this girl could change so much, and also suggests that maybe they even slept together. The lady asks if they have seen the body of this slave, because she is sure that she bought him only to have fun at night, and it looks like they have already had fun. At this time, the main character thought that this was finally the very opportunity, and if their gaze was like a sword, that tongues were like birds. And over time, the rumors would become even more exaggerated and inflated, and if this happened a few more times, they would call her an incorrigible dirty woman. Lara turns to the maid and assures that everything is fine, because she believes that they are probably chatting out of envy about whatever comes to mind without filtering their speech, and she understands that she took such a slave, and they are simply jealous. The lady says that if they want to continue gossiping behind her back, then go ahead and sing, because she believes that they won't dare say it to her face anyway, and besides, it won't make her slave ugly, but it will make her more famous. The main character thinks that it would be good if they said directly that they are jealous. Lara saw the knight and thought that he was sent by her very angry father to keep an eye on her, because in the eyes of others, it would look like he was caring for his beloved daughter, and one way or another, she felt much better after what she had done. The next day, the father tells his daughter that the artist has been fired and suggests that she throw away this vulgar dress, since he has invited another artist and designer. The Marquise tells her to never go to a place like the arena again, because as soon as people start talking about something, her reputation will instantly fall, and then suggests that she attend embroidery or reading circles instead. Her father tells her that 3 days from now, she must be at the temple, because the Sidar prince will appear there. She must dress covered, hide her face under a veil, and pretend to pray all night before the statue. He then tells her that he has bribed the priest to keep quiet. At this time, the girl reflects on the fact that it was not enough to make her the one who would suit the prince's taste in order to attract his attention, and he also tries to turn the situation to his advantage and even bribed the priest to lie. The Marquis asks if she understands, and then asks why she doesn't answer. The girl turns to her father and says she doesn't want to marry the prince, and he, surprised, asks what that means. Lara explains that everything is as she said, and her father knows that the prince is a terrible egoist and just trash. Hearing this, the man tells her to stop being stupid, because he believes that by taking such a step, she is trying to emulate that ungrateful woman. The main character thought that it wasn't enough for him to insult her, and he also insulted her mother. At this time, the butler enters the room and tells the Marquise that he has something to tell him. Lara thought that, judging by the expression on his face, it looked like this was about the incident in the arena, and therefore, she thought it was better to sort everything out at once. 1. Hearing this, the Marquis lost his temper and struck her, then, screaming, asked how she dared to tarnish his name. He ordered her to go to her room and not dare to leave until he gave her permission. The Marquis turns to the servant and orders him to make sure that the lavier does not leave the room, and that anyone who serves her food or speaks to her will be thrown out. The father says that the slave she spoke of earlier must be destroyed without leaving even a trace, and then gives bail. The main character thought that starving is normal, because she is used to it, but it is a little upsetting, and she wonders whether she should at least start a suicidal hype, or whether she should bribe the knight. The lady understands that as soon as this matter is over, she will definitely leave this house. Connie turns to the lady and asks her to open her eyes, and then asks how she is. Lara asks in surprise how she got here, and the maid explains that Madame arrived, and in the morning came and scolded the master, and she was so angry because her daughter was starved for 3 days. The maid reports that Madame slammed the table and then hit him. She frowned so that her eyebrows almost collided with each other, and then the lady suddenly extended her hand to the secretary so that he would bring the divorce papers. Connie explains that it was a quick decision, as if she had prepared for it in advance, and the lady took the documents and quickly left. The maid asks the lady if she is hungry, and then says that she brought her some food because the madam has taken care of everything and therefore offers her to eat without worrying about anything. Lara thought that she hadn't eaten for so long that she didn't even realize that she was hungry, and as soon as she saw the food, she realized that now was not the time to eat because she was wondering where her mother was. The maid said her mother was in the Marquis' office. Upon hearing this, the mistress thanked her and then said she would eat it later because she wanted to go see her mother. At this time, the main character thought that she was not worried about her mother's safety because her father would not choose the path of competition with her, and she was only interested in one thing. Why did her mother change her mind? Because then she certainly had no intention of divorcing her father. The Marquise, screaming, asks if she's crazy and why she's talking about divorce papers. The lady insists she's sane and that he not only locked her daughter up, but also hit her. The woman claims that she cannot leave her daughter in the house of a man like him for another second, and then says that she will take her with her and offers him to sign documents. At this point, the main character was thinking about how she needed to protect her mother. The butler turned to her and asked her to return to her room and pack her bags, but the girl objected, saying she had to stop her father, and the man insists that everything is fine and that she should trust her mother. Connie asks her mistress if she should pack her things. Lara asks what exactly she told her mother. The maid replies that she said the Marquis not only beat her, but also locked her up and starved her, as if she were in prison. The mistress asks if she told her father why he did this. The maid replies that she already knew the slave's name, Damian, and that they bought him for 2 gold pieces. Hearing this, the main character realized that she did not suddenly decide to get a divorce, and it seems that she initially wanted this but held back, but does not understand why now. The girl suggests that it is possible, because she told her about it, and she was probably worried that her daughter would blame her for the reason for their divorce, both in this life and in the previous one. Lara left with her mother, but she was wondering if Connie would be okay. The mother asks for 2 gold pieces. The daughter asks if she's talking about that. The lady interrupts, insisting everything is fine, and then asks how she knew the slave's value. At this point, the main character thought about how Lara, whom her mother knew, was an obedient child who paid no attention to such things. However, one day, she suddenly transformed into a completely different person. The girl thought that now she is not trying to avoid this, because it is difficult to talk about, but she needs to choose the right words and appear as someone who wants to rise even higher despite other successes, or appear as someone who has deep wounds, and that all this is just an inept defense. The Marquise asks when her daughter managed to grow so much, and also wonders what happened. Lara says that she admired the prince, but now she knows that he only wants to take the throne and is ready to do anything for this. And the same applies to her father, because he will give everything so that the prince becomes king. The young lady understands that even if this means following her will, depriving her of freedom and desires, packing her like a doll, and that is why she did this, becoming a vulgar and dirty woman, because she wanted to prevent this. The main character says that her father isn't the kind of person who would accept their child having another boyfriend, and at that moment, she thinks this is such a reckless plan and expects to be scolded. The mother says she raised her, and the daughter, surprised, asks if she's going to scold her. The woman asks why scold her, then says that other people's opinions are meaningless, and she's the one who's going to support her and believe in her. The Marquise gives her a purse with money and says that since she left all her things in this world, where everything costs money, Lara saw 2,000 gold coins and was surprised, and the Marquise said that she did not approve of her method because no mother would like someone pointing a finger at her child. The girl asked for forgiveness, and the woman said that she would not interfere with her or do something her own way when she might have a better plan, and therefore suggested that she not be afraid of trivial things because she was an adult and old enough to kiss, and then asked what difference it made that her beloved was a slave. Mom says that her first kiss was with a waiter, and she was 15 then, and therefore she will not object to any rumors that arise if she only values herself. The woman wondered how she would be different from her father if he controlled her every move. Hearing this, the girl thanked her mother. When Lara saw the mansion, she was surprised because it was even better than Bailey's mansion, and then asked if she could just come in. The lady says that the introduction is late and that Sebastian is mother's secretary. The maid, surprised, asks the mistress if this is all she has, then looks at her 2 suitcases and says that she deliberately left the 2 wardrobes empty. Mother says that then they need to buy new ones, and the secretary tells the girl that he will take her to her room. At this time, the main character thought that this mansion was full of life, and she did not want to rush into exploring it, and she had plans for the evening. Connie asks what if the slave died. The lady explains that's why she's going there, because she wants to find out everything, and believes that if he weren't alive, someone would have contacted her by now. The young lady reflects on what Connie thought, that she, and of course her father, did not let her go so easily. Suddenly, the man turns to the Marquise and says he was waiting for her because he couldn't send anyone to her house, and so he waited. She asks why, and also wonders if it was because of the attack. The man says he won't be interested in this, and then says that the slave is safe and that they have also brought in additional security personnel to ensure her peace of mind. The man says that, moreover, the warriors are going crazy, and the number of people wanting to duel has reached several dozen over the past 3 days. Even slaves from competing establishments lined up, and the ransom price soared to 300 gold pieces. The lady was surprised to hear this, as she'd only bought it for 2. The guy asks what he should do, as the decision about duels or auctions rests solely with the owner. She suggests setting a date for the duel as soon as possible. Lara says that she will discuss this with Damian, and therefore will go to him and talk about it at the same time. When Damian saw the girl, he was surprised, and then asked who hit her. He said that she had a cut on her lip, and also wondered why her cheeks were swollen. The guy grabs the girl by the waist, then lifts her up and invites her to come and talk. At this point, the main character realized that another sweet scandal had been added to the pile. The main character says she heard there was an attack and is waiting for an explanation. He claims there's nothing out of the ordinary, and that there were 3 attacks in total, resulting in 5 deaths. The lady asks if he uses similar methods and doesn't think the attacks were too serious. He replies that they were all confused, but he's fine too. The girl looked at him and then asked what was wrong. The guy replied that it was a man called her father who did it. Hearing this, the girl thought for a moment, and he said that he guessed correctly and then asked if he was going to kill him. Lara insists that everything is fine, because this isn't what she wants, and that they need to go somewhere else today. She explains that they're going to a midnight ball, a party held by the highest nobility for the gentry in different locations each night. And the main character says that the door is always open, as if everything is put on display, and sometimes it is held secretly only for those who have an invitation. Private parties even have a special room for lovemaking. If the arena is a perverted playground for aristocratic girls, whose entertainment is only entry-level, the night ball is a space several levels higher. Lara says that they will dance together, and then he will take her to the exit of the hotel in the city center because she wants to become the most vulgar woman in the whole Otan. Hearing this, the guy agreed in surprise, and she said that she was glad that they were able to come to an agreement and believed that they needed to prepare carefully. A girl and her boyfriend arrived at a luxury boutique in a shopping mall. She turned to the saleswomen and told them to forget that she was a noble lady and to give her the most luxurious and striking clothes because she was going to wear them to a prom. The woman offers to take her to the VIP lounge and then asks what kind of dress she is looking for. The main character explains that the dress should not have any white color and it should not be too revealing, but this dress must captivate absolutely everyone. The saleswoman asks if they can replace the ribbons with fresh flowers. Upon hearing this, the maid, surprised, asks what other flowers, knowing that if the mistress steps on them while dancing, she might fall. The worker asks what about the dress she is holding in her hands, as it is quite revealing, and asks if she would like to try it on. Connie, surprised, asks if she really wants to wear it, as she realizes it's too ladylike. Damian asks in surprise if she is also going to dance there, and therefore suggests that it is better not to take heavier dresses that will make it difficult to move in. Hearing this, Lara thought it was a very practical idea, and then asked the guy if he was good at dancing. He said he could imitate the others if he saw him once. The lady says that's excellent, and then says she'll pick out his clothes. She wants a low-cut shirt that reveals his chest up to the solar plexus. Leather pants would also be appropriate. She suggests he wear ankle-length boots and a tie that can be tied loosely or left hanging, preferably with a red lining. Hearing this, the guy says it'll be too hot for him, and the lady insists the coat is for the next step. He asks, surprised, why the coat? Because he understands he's supposed to undress, not wrap himself up. Lara suggests that he not worry, because this is to remove him in the process. Damian says that he needs to show his muscles, but the girl thinks that he is more attractive when he is naked than when he is clothed. Hearing this, the maid doesn't understand, since when her lady became good at this kind of thing. Connie asks the lady if she really wants to go there, and then says that the color is too vulgar, and the shadows and music are in the same style, and the food will definitely taste the same. Lara wonders what she's even talking about, and then turns to the guy and invites him to always be by her side because she thinks that someone might attack him. The main character says that she heard that slaves must ask their mistress's permission to talk to someone, and believes that there will still be people who want to start an argument or seduce one of them. At this time, Damian looked at her and thought that she looked like a cat, and then he claims that he understood everything and invites her to come in. The young lady thought they danced beautifully and thought that showing up with Damiano would be enough. However, everywhere there are only drunks looking for a fight, obscene language constantly in the air, and food that hasn't been eaten is thrown on the floor. The presence of substances similar to drugs and much more, and the main character realized that her actions were just a child's play, but unpleasant glances continue to fall on her. The guy asks the girl how she is. Lara replies that it's hard for her to enjoy things like that, and he suggests they leave if she's having a hard time. Lady Dwan tells the Marquise that she is good at drinking, and then tells her that they say there is no class discrimination in this ballroom, and she wonders if it is too much to bring a slave here, but she thinks he is special. Lara turns to them and says that they could just say that they are jealous, and since they do not have money to buy slaves, she can lend them some. Hearing this, Madame smiled, and the main character asks what's so funny. Damian explains that since she started acting like a villain, he's become more sensitive, and then asks the girl if he can help her. The young man says she won't be the most promiscuous woman in her father's life if she does. She asks what he wants to do then. The guy replies that he doesn't know yet, but he's certain of one thing: he won't let her endure all this alone. The gentleman looked at Damian and asked if that wasn't the guy escorting the girl in promiscuous clothing. Upon hearing this, the young man kicked him in the face and then asked who he was staring at. The Duke turns to the guy and says that he is just trying to have fun, but when he saw that Damian was heading towards him, he was very scared because he had a bad feeling, and he was not mistaken because the guy hit him, and then a fight began. The Marquise, surprised, asks what he's thinking, and then grabs his hand to stop him from being theirs. She tells him to flee the Otan and return to the Empire. Damian objects and says he doesn't want to, and she asks if he wants to be executed. He turns to the lady and says that he is her great warrior and a creature who fights for her, and if she doesn't like something, no matter what it is, he will get rid of everything. The young man says that's why she bought some tasty treats when she visits him in prison. The main character thought that even her professor at the academy had never reproached her, but now she was in the investigative department of the police, and she became interested in what he was thinking about. The man asks if she is the daughter of the Marquis de Belly, and also inquires about her relationship with the captive slave. She replies that he is her warrior. The policeman, however, believes they shouldn't be considered warriors, but rather lovers. The lady thanks him for his advice, and he orders her to sign a declaration renouncing ownership of her slave, Damian, and agreeing that the slave will be punished for the crime he committed. The girl asks what kind of deserved punishment this is, and he explains that it is the death penalty. Lara claims that she will not do this, and if he wants to get a signature, then first let her meet with him. The man believes the young lady is acting as if she doesn't understand what's going on. The Marquise claims she knows he can't force her to sign, and even knows that even if a criminal is a slave, he can't be disciplined as long as he has a master. The policeman screams and says that this slave is dangerous, and if everyone finds out about what happened in the banquet hall and about her presence there, it will be much worse. However, the lady assures that she doesn't care, and he then suggests that she come tomorrow afternoon and informs her that he sent a man to her house and that they will come for her sooner. The main character says that such mercy was not necessary. A young man enters the room and tells the lady that he has come to pick her up, then takes her hand. He explains that the Marquis ordered him to return her and ensure her safety. Lara claims that she is not going to return, and at that time, she thought that he would not help her if she bit her tongue and red liquid came out, and he simply would not even look at it and would drag her by force. Lady Dwan, seeing that the Marquise is in danger of turning to this young man, orders him to let go of her hand. Then she asks what this new method of interrogating witnesses is and says she's already furious and suggests not angering her further. Hearing this, the main character thought they could simply pass by and not interfere. The lady then asks, how dare a servant drag along a lady, the only daughter of a precious Marquise family, and then asks if he wants to lose his hands. Lara doesn't understand why they're standing up for her and wonders if they didn't hate her. The man apologizes and then explains that the Marquise told him to bring the lady. Milady screams and asks if the noble Marcus Bailey treats his daughter like a dog, and asks if he ordered her to be dragged back by force. The lady screams and says that the Marquis Bailey beat and did not let his daughter out of the room, and then asks if he now ordered her to be kidnapped. The man apologizes and then announces that they are leaving. The woman runs up to him and asks if he understands, and at that moment, the guy pushes her, causing her to fall. Another lady asks if he attacks nobles, and then calls the guards, and also asks what the security forces are doing. The lady with red hair turns to her friend and asks if she hit herself hard, and my lady says that she thinks she broke her leg. At this time, the man thought that anyone would understand that this was a game. Lady Dwan says that this is the last warning, and if he does not leave there or takes Lady Bailey against her will, then she will spread rumors that he kidnapped her, beat her, and humiliated her. The woman claims that no matter how high-ranking a nobleman the Marquis is, he will not take his life into account, and then she approaches the chest and offers to go with them to her carriage. Lady Dwan turns to the girl and suggests calling her Eunice and her friend Jimena. The main character says that her name is Lara, and Eunice says that she knows it because there are few people in Otana who don't know her. The Marquise asks why they helped her. The lady explains that they are interested in her, but at first she irritated her, as she was an exemplary student who was always praised, but then suddenly she invaded their territory and even snatched an attractive slave. Eunice says the more she looked, the stranger it seemed, and that kiss with the slave that had attracted everyone's attention before, and she had nothing to do with him. The lady claims she was wearing a red dress, a color considered vulgar, and she kept wondering what kind of vulgarity it was. Afterward, the Marchioness went to the night ball, apparently to enjoy it, but it doesn't seem like that was actually the case. Eunice reports that she even feels disgusted there, and asks if that's true. Then she reports that her slave beat up an aristocrat, which brought on even more trouble. The lady says that if she wants to be a real villain, she will have to do bad things, and then asks why she does such things. Jimena asks the main character if she is doing this on purpose, because she understands that the Marquise is trying to force her into an absurd marriage of convenience. Lara, surprised, asks how they knew this. Lady replies that this is a common occurrence that can lead to such behavior, and if she wants to escape family pressure, she'll immediately say that this isn't enough. The aristocrat explains that her father was an overly passionate gambler, and when she found out that he had squandered her share of the inheritance left by her grandfather, she doused her father's entire bedroom with gasoline and set it on fire because she believed that this was better than cursing him. 1. Lady Dwan says that she spent all her money throwing parties with everyone, and when she remembers it, she feels so happy and thinks that it was an amazing time. The aristocrats explain that they also quarreled with their families and with the people who surrounded them. Eunice says that they even tried to lock her in the temple's prayer room for the purpose of rehabilitation, and she heard that the Marquis once locked Lara, and then explains that there are no rumors that are not discussed at the night ball. Jimena says that if she is not ready to give up everything and hit the bottom, then the result of her actions can bring her a lot of pain because no one will respect her. Hearing this, the main character thought that they were kind to the girl, and they had to become villains in order to survive. And in fact, they were not bad at all, because they even managed to get themselves dirty by falling to the ground for the sake of the girl who found herself in the same situation as them. Lara thought that if it had been in the past, she would not have been able to do this, and then she thanks the girls, because thanks to their words, she understood the main thing. The girl says she should have started by feeling like her life was trash, but she didn't seem to notice. She then announces that she must renounce her family name and forfeit all noble privileges, as well as discard the identity and family name she inherited from her father. The protagonist thought about how her father, alone at home without a wife or child, obsessively holding a power that would gradually fade, would meet his end alone, and she wanted him to suffer alone for the rest of his life. The next day, Lara says that the nobles' limbs were broken and their teeth knocked out by a slave who had not received a single wound against a knight with a weapon, and the reason for this was his mad love for his mistress. The lady says that he doesn't like to show her to others so much that he hits them with his aim, even at those who just look in her direction, and then asks what he thinks about these rumors that he created before he got here. Damian wonders if it is true what they say, that this lady is so beautiful and charming that the slave completely forgot about his status. Lara reports that more than a dozen people say that he should be executed, but he claims that this is not enough, and the girl asks what he is planning. The guy says the Crown Prince of Tarragon can grant immunity from liability. The lady was surprised to hear this. Damian explains that he once saved the Crown Prince in a war and received immunity for this, and even the investigators most likely already know that his name is Damian Drake. Hearing this, the main character became curious whether Drake was not the surname he received, along with the title of Lord, when he became king of the lawless land. The Marquis says that if he has a last name, that means he can't be a slave, and then, crying out, asks why he pretended to be one all this time. He replies that he's too lazy to explain. The young man says that for him, slaves and commoners are the same thing, as is dying on the battlefield or being executed. At this time, the main character thought that in her past life, she treated Damian like a slave until he ran away, and therefore understands that in this life only she has changed, while the rest moved along their own path. The girl understands that this means that in the past, there was no reason to imprison him, and then asks in surprise why he did this, because she understands that he deliberately allowed himself to be caught. The guy says that he has a question for her, and then asks if she always looked at him as if she knew him perfectly well, but now she looks at him like he's a stranger. The Marquise asks why he came to the Hôtel. However, he remains silent. The investigator turns to Lady Bailey and asks her to leave, and then says that a man who introduced himself as her mother's secretary came here and did God knows what. The girl asks Sebastian what happened. He explains that naturally, he is here to post bail for the fact that this slave protected the mistress. Hôtel is a weak kingdom. Although it is not under the influence of the empire, but due to its weakness, it still makes its moves with caution. If the kingdom were to execute such a special commoner of the Estragon Empire, there would be a great risk of diplomatic tensions between Hôtel and Estragon. Moreover, Isadora, whose enormous fortune has created such a huge stir that even the security forces cannot cope with all of this now, and the order regarding Damian's case has already been passed on to the authorities. Sidar Hôtel, the king's eldest son, because of his outstanding abilities, if only a younger sister had not been born who was better than him, that was the first thing the prince thought about when he realized that he would fight for the throne with his younger sister, who is 10 years younger than him. This is the empty place of a wife who can be used to become a king. The prince says that one way or another, it must be ByHer Bailey, and he doesn't understand why her name can't be pronounced normally, and also asks if parents don't try to give their children popular names and not such complicated ones. The butler explains that the Marquis Bailey is obsessed with aristocratic things, and he probably wanted to demonstrate his nobility with this long and complex name, and then says that, in short, her name is Lara. Sidri wonders if the Marquis Bailey didn't say that he desperately wants to make his daughter a princess, and then asks in surprise why the portrait is like this, and whether the Marquis intends to turn the country into a kingdom of debauchery. The man explains that he said he called an artist to redraw the portrait, but because his daughter was not home, nothing happened. His Majesty asks if she has run away from home. The butler explains that the Marquise is in the middle of divorce proceedings with Isadora del Celestial, and word has it that his daughter has left with her mother. The prince thought that the Marquis of Bailey was a card that would be a waste to throw away, because of the actions he had committed. Many aristocrats respected him. Sidri says that a close friend with whom he worked so hard is getting divorced and is left penniless, and he simply cannot watch this. And then he tells them to tell him to demand an exorbitant amount of alimony so that the Marquise understands that she should not get divorced. The prince says to send a respected nobleman as a mediator between them, and he will also take part in this. Then they will not dare to behave arrogantly, because he will also invite them to a banquet that will take place in the near future. His Highness believes this woman will eventually thank him. The assistant asks His Highness what to do with the slave. Sidri says to let him go and console the victims in Meru. He believes they can't be proud of being beaten by a slave. He also believes that from now on, the real battle for the throne will begin, and there must be no friction with the empire. Less than a week after his imprisonment, Damian was released, and in the meantime, Lara visited the prison twice a day with snacks. He sampled dishes from all the best restaurants in the capital, and the protagonist thought that if she treated him to delicious food, he wouldn't want to return to the arena. However, the girl doesn't understand why he goes there if he's not a slave. The guy replied that it's convenient because they provide food, clothing, housing, and money. The main character thought that she would most likely need permission from her mother to bring him home. Mother says that he threatened to make her a beggar, and the prince is trying to stop her divorce, and also advised her to request alimony. The daughter asks why he interferes in other people's family affairs. The woman replies that it's all for her husband's power and her wealth, and believes he did it because he needs their marriage for his own political purposes. Lara understands that her father is now on the verge of bankruptcy due to financial problems. Her mother tells her not to worry, as she will solve this problem herself. She believes parents should solve their own problems, and she's prepared for the fact that she won't be able to get a divorce. The main character thought that this was a lie because she was angry, and unlike last time, this time she wanted a divorce at any cost, and it was understandable why the prince decided to intervene and believed that even if she didn't know much, she needed to help her mother. The mother says she'll come as soon as she's sorted everything out, and if she needs more pocket money, she should let her know any time. But the girl insists she has enough. Lara doesn't understand what will happen if the best thing to do is to reveal it first, because her father will be heavily criticized, and it will be easier for her mother to get a divorce. She believes the criticism should be so severe that even the prince won't be able to side with him. The girl thinks it would be nice if it were a lasting and dirty mistake. However, she understands that her father has a very good reputation, but corruption and crime have tainted his personal life, as he conspired with the Temple of Glory and caused discord among prominent nobles. The Marquis Bailey sold fabricated information. He felt inferior to his wife, as her success was far greater. He even stooped to sleeping with commoners, who were only interested in his status and money. Lara is thinking about how she will gather such obvious evidence that he will never get away with it, and she will reveal everything, because her father will not receive a penny in alimony due to the divorce from his mother. Sebastian asks the young lady if she's out for a walk. She replies that she has a lot to think about. He tells her that if she needs to discuss anything, she should let him know any time. The secretary gives the lady the invitation that was sent for her. The main character looked at the letter and realized that it was the emblem of the royal family, and the sender was Prince Sidar. Lara read that this was an invitation to a banquet in honor of Prince Sidar, and everyone said that this was a selection banquet to choose a candidate for the princess. The Marquise remembered that in her past life, she had not participated in that banquet, but in her father's opinion, she should have been a woman whom he could only meet in the temple's prayer room and not in the banquet hall. After all, for her at that moment, it was the right choice, because the prince did not choose anyone at the selection banquet. The lady thought that the most important thing that would happen at the banquet now was not the selection of a candidate for the title of crown princess, but the assassin's attack on Princess Sonnet. Lara became interested in how this could be prevented and whether she could correct this situation. Sebastian says the lady doesn't have to go if she doesn't want to, but the lady objects and insists she will, believing the prince won't be interested in her anyway, as she has a different goal. The Marchioness says she has a question, and then asks if the mother is entitled to child support if the father is at fault for the divorce. The secretary says yes. Hearing this, the girl thought that her father would have no choice but to sign the divorce papers because she was personally promoting it, but she felt she needed to shame him a couple of times beforehand. The father wants to put the prince on the throne, and she saves the princess from trouble, and such a picture will appear before the eyes of society. People will talk about how the father and daughter support different candidates for the throne, and such a betrayal will shock the father. Lara thought that she needed to prepare for the banquet. The ladies say that they came to help her choose clothes, but before that, Eunice needs to check something and then asks Lara if she has money. The Marquise showed her purse, and seeing this, the girls suggested that she go faster. Seeing these ladies, the woman said that they had not visited her for a long time, and she was worried that they were tired of her dress. Eunice turns to the lady and says that she is flattering them, and then announces that they have brought in another client. When the Marquise greeted the woman, she was surprised, and then asked if she would sew clothes for Isadora's daughter and invited them to come in, as she would do whatever their heart desired. The girl says that she would like something unusual, something amazing and also crazy. The main character reflects on the fact that they had fun for so long, but she does not understand why, every time she thinks about meeting this man, she gets nervous. The guy invites her in, and Lara, surprised, asks if her steps are so loud, and also wonders how he knows when she arrives. Daniel explains that it's because he was waiting for her. Hearing this, the lady thinks he's being ambiguous, and then says she came here because she has a proposition and might already be annoying him. The young man claims that nothing of the sort happened, and she thanks him for such kind words. Lara announces that a grand banquet will soon be held on the banks of the Tender River. This banquet is being hosted by nobles supporting Prince Sidar, and the princess also plans to attend. The main character informs her that the magician will try to kill the princess and that she would like to take him as her escort to the banquet. He asks, surprised, if she needs to save the princess. The marquise explains that this is exactly what she wanted, because the princess will reward him generously, and although she is still young, she is very talented and smart. Daniel, surprised, asks why he has to do this. At this point, the protagonist thinks that in the near future, the prince will take advantage of his abilities and try to capture and use him. However, the girl believes that to avoid this, it's better to become a benefactor to the princess, who is his opponent, and that he won't be a slave who was used and then discarded. After all, she wants to make him a hero everyone will look up to. Lara thought about how much she wanted to tell him, and then she said that magicians are bad. He asked if she wanted him to do this, to save the princess in danger, and to defeat evil. The main character insists that this is exactly what she wants, and he agrees. Meanwhile, the lady muses that since he doesn't ask questions, she assumes he'll definitely help. She says they've finished their business and will see each other soon. The guy says they'll meet tomorrow. Damian looked out the window and saw the marquise. He thought that this woman knew him, and he could not believe that someone he did not remember knew him so well, and he did not know how this was possible, but he was sure that it was so. The young man reflects on the fact that ordinary people cannot sense his presence, but besides this, she also sensed the danger emanating from him and realized that he was deliberately behaving stupidly. The boy reflected on the fact that she'd even given him an expensive weapon that hadn't been used in the arena, but when she learned he'd been granted immunity by the Crown Prince of Tarragon, she was astonished, as if such a thing couldn't possibly happen. Damian reflected that he'd previously doubted it, but now he was completely certain Lara knew him. Dark mages are powerful, and even an experienced knight would have a hard time finding and defeating one, especially if he was sent to kill a member of the royal family. He must have exceptional skills. The young man thought that this did not matter to him, because even black magic did not work on him, and he wondered how she knew that he could easily defeat a magician, and he did not understand, because she knew that a dark magician would appear at the banquet. Damian believes he's suspicious of her, but can't leave her, and he wonders if there's an even more absurd scenario. He muses that the strange feeling of loss that has haunted him his entire life disappears when he's with Lara, and he thinks about her from morning to night. The guy realizes he keeps thinking about her and waiting for her to come to him, and every time someone passes by the door, he listens to see if it's her, and he believes his people will die laughing if they find out Lara knows about him. The gentleman turns to Damian and says that dark magicians have set their sights on the kingdom of Aten, and news has reached him that they have already firmly established ties with the nobles, and since black magic does not affect him, he asks if he can go and find out what is happening there. The guy thought that the Prince of Tarragon had sent him, and he wondered if she knew that he was a spy. On the eve of the banquet, Eunice believes that all preparations are complete, and only one thing remains, and then announces that from this moment on, serious lessons begin. The girl thought about the fact that she put on glasses to look like a strict teacher, and then asks about it, and also thanks for helping with all the preparations. The lady with black hair claims that her manner of speech is too soft, and this manner of speaking should be thrown away far away, and formal speech and swearing should become her standard functions. Lara, surprised, asks how she should start screaming. She replies that at least no one contradicts her, and then thinks to herself that it's her turn. Jimena says she'll teach her how to swear. Then, with a shriek, she says the swearing should have a sharp tone and intonation, and her facial expression should be menacing and serious. But most importantly, she should look natural. The lady with red hair claims that she just said this, and that this is how it works, and then suggests trying something else. Eunice believes that there's something more important than speech, and that facial expression is more effective than words. She says it's her facial expressions, as she's calm and able to ignore others. However, she thinks this is too elegant and cold-blooded. The main character asks in surprise what she should do, and the lady claims that she needs to look down on them and ignore them, and also laugh at them and despise them. Jimena insists she should be prepared to grab her enemy by the hair and make them cry. Lara asks if that makes sense. The morning of the banquet came completely unexpectedly, and the maid thought that the mistress was becoming more and more strange, but she liked it. Lara stopped by to pick up Damian on her way to the banquet, and when he got into the carriage, she said that there was something she wanted to say before leaving. The girl says that when she enters, people will start whispering and staring, so she suggests simply ignoring it. He agrees. The lady explains that bringing a bodyguard into a banquet hall where members of the royal family are present is against etiquette, but she will say that she won't go anywhere without one because of her father's recent attempt to kidnap her. The boy, surprised, asks what if they don't let her in. She says it's not a big deal, because she just needs him to be there for the princess and save her at the right moment. The marquise says that they have already arrived and thinks that it looks like the royal persons have not yet arrived, and the young man invites her to go and then takes her hand. For the nobles who had seen it all in their lives, this would have been a minor incident, and she thought her actions would only result in some criticism from her peers. But the protagonist never expected to attract so much attention. Lara understands that even the slightest gestures will be subject to their assessment, and, as she was told, there is no need to be afraid because she should behave naturally and freely. The girl thought about raising her head because in the past, she had to lower her gaze, thereby avoiding eye contact with others, like a herbivore who couldn't fight. After all, she had been taught to tuck her tail and keep her eyes down. The main character knows that she is not going to do this anymore, and now they will judge the new her, and she does not drink and does not swear like Eunice, and will not be able to do something that will cause a huge commotion like Jimena, because she will go her own way. The marquise thought that, at the moment when she remembers how she took the poison, she remembers how her insides melted from it, and what is happening now does not even come close to comparing to that. When the girl saw her father, she asked if he was begging his mother for child support, and then said that she had heard that he was on the verge of bankruptcy, but that it was a bit ugly, and she wondered if he thought the same thing because he thought it looked pathetic. The marquise turns to his daughter and tells her to return home, and at this time, the main character thought that she should not be afraid because her father would never behave inappropriately in front of the nobles, and he would not raise his hand or yell at her, and therefore she believes that she should take advantage of this. Father says this big house feels empty without her. Hearing this, the lady thinks he's brave, and then suggests not saying anything he doesn't mean. ByHer suggests they stay back, and then asks if he wants to hit her again. She reminds him that not only did he beat her and lock her in a room, but he also tried to kidnap her, and therefore believes he's the one who's now keeping her from going anywhere unaccompanied. The Marquis claims he doesn't know what she's talking about, and then asks what bad thing her father did. Lyra says that now she doesn't care about such things, and asks how long he's going to pretend that he doesn't know anything. Hearing this, the father tells her to shut up, and then raises his hand to hit her, but seeing the aristocrats, he changes his mind because they were watching him. The main character realized that he raised his hand out of habit, but apparently realized that this was not the right place, and therefore understands that if he hit her again now, everything would turn out just perfect. ByHer asks why he raised his hand, and if he wants to hit her again. Her father insists that she really does look like her mother. The butler announces that members of the royal family have arrived. Damian asks if she's saying he should save the princess while he's so far away. The lady insists it's best to avoid the Sidar prince. He asks, surprised, why? The girl explains that her father is trying to make her his bride, and she doesn't know what good will come out of this meeting. The guy says that if she becomes a princess, then asks if that means she's a future queen. Lara says no thanks, and she'll pass this scam on to someone else. The young man wondered where the dark magicians would appear, then looked at the people who were in the boats, and asked if she thought they were hiding there. The lady replies that she doesn't know, and at that time, the guy thought that she was sure that the incident would happen, but she didn't know the details, and he became interested in what kind of boat they might be on. Lara asks if he'll be okay without a weapon. He asks, surprised, if she thinks he'll lose. She insists he'll win, and he agrees. Damian asks if she wants him to be the hero who saves the princess and defeats evil. She replies, that's right, and he suggests they see each other later, then leaves. Suddenly, the main character was pushed, and she saw that this was a princess, and then, surprised, asked why she was here. Damian tells her not to move, and then covers the princess and the marquise with his cloak. Lara understands why all the knights who were guarding her arrived then, because they alone could not cope with the attacks of the dark magician. The boy thought the shield wouldn't help, but then he saw the dark mage using his power. He turned to the marquise and said he was counting on her, then jumped onto the boat and knocked the dark mage down. At this time, the main character watched him from the balcony and thought about what he caught, and it worked, but she became interested in what happened to other people. Lara realized that the people Damian had protected were okay. The princess turns to the lady and asks if she's hurt. The marchioness replies that she's not in the least bit hurt, then asks what's wrong with the princess and her knights. Her Highness claims that everything is fine, and then touches her. At this time, the main character thought that her hands were so icy and suggested that they go to a safe place together. Her Highness addresses the aristocrats and says that all the wounded must immediately receive medical attention. She will go first with the Lady Bailey, and therefore asks that the lady's knights be brought to her room. Lara reflects that she was also a little scared, but now she knows what a princess is like. Her Highness tells the girl that she is very sorry that she dragged her into this, but believes that she should have left immediately because she thought that no one would be around. The main character reflected on how this had enabled her to save the princess, and then told her not to be shy and to simply call her Lara instead of Lady Bailey. The maid turned to the princess and said that Lady Bailey's knight had arrived. Sonnet Otan is a sweet, beautiful, kind, and intelligent princess. They say that as soon as her mother becomes ill, she immediately goes to look after her and goes to the king's office every morning to greet him. Rumors about the princess are endless, and when a young maid made a mistake, Her Highness didn't scold her, but treated her to sweets, and she never slacks off in her studies, and she built a separate room for the knights. They say Her Highness always tries to help the weak and simply adores children. The main character thought these stories might be exaggerated, but the princess bowed her head and thanked her. Lara reflects on the fact that she, of course, also thought that all these stories were rather exaggerated, but she turned out to be exactly as they said about her. Damian explains that he was simply trying to protect his mistress. Her Highness asserts that they are her saviors, and therefore her father will reward them generously since she won't just let things go. Then she asks if there's anything they wish for. The guy says that if his mistress wants something, then it will be his wish too, and therefore asks to give the entire reward to his mistress. Hearing this, the main character doesn't know what to say now, because she believes that he should have received the award and not her. Sitting in the carriage, Lara asks why he did this, because he believes that the rewards given by the royal family are better than he thinks, and if he is lucky, he can even receive a noble title or the famous sword of the royal family. The man claims he doesn't need it, but the girl says many people have a bad opinion of him because of the latest assault incident. The main character believes that if he became the princess's benefactor, he would receive more positive attention. He, however, argues that this is also unnecessary. Hearing this, the girl thought it was like throwing peas against the wall because she thinks that she puts everything on the shelves for him, but he doesn't understand. Lara thought that she was very glad that neither the knights nor the princess were seriously harmed, and her guilt in the past was that, on the contrary, she sympathized with the supposedly poor prince who had to exile the princess. The girl thought that she couldn't say that she had atoned for her guilt, but she was so glad that she was able to pay back at least a little, and it didn't matter that she had managed to make Damian a hero, since she believed that there would be many more opportunities for this in the future. The Marquise turns to the boy and asks why he pushed her toward the princess. He replies that it was because she was trying to save the princess, not him. The young lady wonders what he was talking about with the magician on the boat, because she saw that he grabbed him by the neck and said something to him. The man explains that he asked what his goal was, and he replied, "House." The lady insists it's obvious, and even if she can't give him a title, she'll definitely give him the famous sword. Damian says that he wants to watch, and at this time the main character, half asleep, says that she really worked hard today, and before that, she was very nervous, so it seems she is so tired. The guy strokes the girl and wishes her sweet dreams, and also enjoys her beauty. Meanwhile, Sebastian asks if there is still any news from Lara, because he understands that they have not yet received any eyewitness accounts since the attack took place. The Marquise suggests that he allocate more people to the search, because she believes that he needs to hurry, as she is very worried about her daughter. Suddenly, a carriage drives up to the house, and a young gentleman comes out, holding Lara in his arms. Sebastian, frightened, asks if she's okay. The young man replies that she's sleeping and suggests they not worry, as the lady is fine. The Marquise looked at the guy and then asked if he was Damian, and then told him to follow her. At this time, the young man looked at the lady and thought that the heavenly Isadora had a similar side, and then he followed her. The Marquise reports that everyone says he is a very talented man, and then asks if he is from the Tarragon Empire. The guy explains that he was a military slave, and the woman says that she heard about it, and then asks if she can ask the purpose of his visit to the Otan. Damian reflected that before, he had wanted to keep this secret from anyone, but he felt that things had changed, After all, the crown prince had ordered him to do this in complete secrecy, so he hadn't sought allies. The man reports that they are tracking a faction of dark mages, and they are investigating the plans and goals of the dark mages hiding in the Aten kingdom. The Marquise, surprised, asks if he belongs to the temple and who commissioned him. He replies that he can't say. Isadora reports that an investigation into his past has revealed nothing, but she wants to eliminate all dangers around her daughter, and if he is the one doing such dangerous work, she feels she should ask him to leave. The woman says she'll compensate him. Damian says he understands. She claims she'll lose everything for her daughter, even if she dies, but she'll ensure the empire falls. The guy says that he knows this, and if Lara is in danger, regardless of the mission, he will protect her at all costs, and at all costs. Isadora asks what will happen if he ultimately hands over his client. The young man insists that Lara now comes first. Hearing this, the lady says that then she relies on him, and Damian claims that he will bring her benefit. The Marquise says it's already late and tells him to go to bed. Damian remembers the magician's words about killing the saint, then tells the woman he needs to check something and can't go to bed yet. Damian is curious about which saint he was talking about because he understands that more than 100 years have passed since God left this earth, and he understands that naturally the words about the saint are a lie, but it doesn't hurt to check. The guy came to the magician and told him to keep quiet if he didn't want to be tortured again by knights everywhere, and then he reminded him that he said that a saint appeared on this land and asked where he got such information. The man responds by screaming that the devil said so, and they will kill all the women they suspect of being holy. Damian tells him to speak quietly, and then asks if she's the princess. He replies that Sonnet Otain is one of the candidates with great potential. Suddenly, the man sensed someone approaching, and he didn't know what to do, save them or kill them. He believed that the devil's minions were irredeemable, and that the moment they made a pact with the devil, their rights to life and souls were transferred to the devil. Damian knows that he will still be useless, even if he spares his life, and if he is left alive, he will irritate and hinder him, since he has declared that he will kill all women suspected of holiness, and therefore believes that there is no need to save his life. Lara read a note from her father, asking her to stop by the house sometime, because he wanted to talk to her, and she thought about how he didn't know the meaning of the word surrender, and was out of his mind, because he thought she'd return to this house. The maid tells her mistress that she thinks it will rain in the evening, and therefore suggests that she wear something without long skirts, just in case. Jimena looked at the girl and said that she had not made a mistake in choosing this dress. Lara opened the box and asked if she should wear it again, because she knew that this box had just arrived. The lady with red hair asks if this is what they ordered back then, and the maid says that it is an incredibly beautiful nightgown, but the main character insists that it is not a nightgown because it is worn on top. Lara thought that she didn't know exactly how many years had passed since the trend that had originated in the empire had swept through Aten's social circles. An imperial dancer who arrived in the kingdom wore a similar fabric as a cloak. The thin fabric didn't drape over her silhouette, but rather fluttered as she moved. This captivated women and quickly became a new fashion trend. The young lady thought that she really wanted to wear this when she pretended to be a fake saint, but then she did not have enough courage for it, and she only bought similar things secretly and only admired them. The girl reflects on the fact that back then, she thought that it was not appropriate for a saint to wear something like that, and does not understand why she thought so. Lara puts it on and asks how she looks. Connie says she's deeply touched, because before she only wore long clothes like a phantom curtain, but finally, the mistress is wearing something that truly suits her. Hearing this, the lady was surprised, and the maid explained that the ghost living behind the curtain comes out into the world at night when the curtains are closed. The main character turns to the maid and reminds her that she told her to stop reading strange books. She explains that the mistress's secretary lent her the book and that it's very interesting. Connie explains that it is a very famous book called Otana's collection of traditional ghost stories. Sebastian asks the lady if she has a minute. Lara says she was thinking about him. He greets her and asks how she rested. The young lady says that she is so sorry that she constantly interrupts him from his work, and he says that the only thing that matters to them is her safety. The lady says that these are her friends, Lady Dwan and Lady Swivy. Eunice asks the man why he came. Sebastian turns to the Marquise and asks her to step aside. The lady says she'll be back soon and suggests the friends take a rest.